All right. We're talking Detroit Lions on the Ourlads Football Network, the Ourlads Football YouTube Channel. And of course, that means Jeff Risdon's on the program, managing editor of the Lions Wire. Jeff, good to have you back again.
Always good to be with you. It's a fun time to talk Lions.
Oh, yes, it is. And it's been a long road. Even just the two of us talking, it's been a long enough road following the team and talking about them here on the network. But things have obviously gone really well recently. And now they're going to enter the season as the hunter, or the hunted. They're going to be teams
Yes.
hunting the Detroit Lions. And we'll see how they handle that. I'm sure they'll handle it really well. But before we get into breaking down the depth chart and going over a whole bunch of other stuff, how's the mood regarding that? Like, this is a camp where it's unusual for them to go there, and I'm sure they're having interviews, national interviews about how good they were, and Super Bowl aspirations. How are they handling all this?
They're trying to downplay it as much as possible. Like, they acknowledge it. They know they're good. They know that the bar has been raised. They're ready for that. That's something that Dan Campbell's talked about. Amon-Ra St. Brown has brought it up. Jared Goff has brought it up. Aiden Hutchinson's brought it up. It's like, yeah, we're ready. We're ready to be that. It's been a long time coming. They know they're a very talented group, and they know that the expectations are there, and they're not running from it.
Yeah, and then the thing too is that the division is getting really tough, and it can be tough if the Chicago Bears do their part. And I'm sure Lions fans don't want to see that, but they do have Caleb Williams.
See. Yeah, they have Montez Sweat. They don't. The Bears' defense does not get enough love. I think their offense gets too much love. Yeah. I don't think their defense gets enough love. But we'll see. They're formidable. Packers are a good football team. No running away from that. They're the primary competition in my eyes, anyways, and they should be expecting to make the postseason as well. But the Lions are too. Lions are very good. That's something that it's tough as a lifelong Lions fan, somebody that's been around since the 70s, to accept the reality that this is a really good football team that should be considered one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And we say that with zero sense of irony it's real, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Detroit and Green Bay were playing in the NFC Championship game. That's how, as long as they pick up where they left off last season, and then of course Minnesota. I mean, they've had just a house of horrors types of offseason.
Yeah.
So unfortunate, but it is what it is. Okay, so. Let's get started. First of all, Jared Goff gets his new big deal. I believe, I think this, we didn't have this news the last time we spoke, but he is pretty much set now, prime of his career, big contract, cash, Detroit Lions organization to Goff. So I'm sure he's pretty stoked.
Oh, well, he's pretty low key about it, but yeah, he's definitely. He's California excited. That's sort of the way that he is. He's not somebody who really. He's kind of always the same guy, no matter if they've just won a game or if they've lost a game. He's marrying a supermodel, got all the new money, but he still sounds like a guy that wouldn't be opposed to going down and having McDonald's and buying the employees their dinner. Like that's just sort of who he is. But he's earned it. It hasn't always been easy for him in Detroit. When he first got here, it was rough, but he has played his way into being one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, and he absolutely deserves it. He's earned it. He is a fringe MVP candidate. I don't think he's going to get it just for a variety of reasons, but he certainly belongs there. He's been so effective in Ben Johnson's offense, in making the right decisions, making the right reads, and keeping all the trains running on time. And that doesn't give him enough credit for how good he is, but sure. That's the crux of what he is, and he's very good at it.
I did a show a couple of days ago on Playbook Experts YouTube channel with these Hall of Fame handicappers that I produced their show, and they were getting their picks for the NFL MVP. And Jim Feist, who's like one of the legends in the industry, he actually picked Jared Goff. He said Jared Goff is going to be my pick. Now, of course, nobody's. It'd be monkeys could pick the favorites, but we're trying to pick odds wise some good options, and he thinks that Jared Goff's a great option. I think he's 20-1. I think that's the number.
That's not a bad investment if you got a little bit of money to play. If you're going to buy a lottery ticket, that's not a bad one to buy.
Not at all. And it also, you mentioned Johnson, and it just shows you how fortunate some quarterbacks are and how some aren't when they are able to be matched up with the right coach, the right staff, the right scheme, because it's like Goff has shown his best moments. And of course, now he's older and more experienced, but with two of the better offensive minds in football. And he's been very fortunate about that. Now, that doesn't make every quarterback great, but you have to have skill. He's got skill, and he's been matched up very, very fortunate with Ben Johnson. And we've talked a lot about him over the last few years. So is there anything that he has to do, though? And let's throw Johnson into this as well, because Johnson didn't have a lot of experience, of course, in big playoff games, calling those things. So what does Ben Johnson and Jared Goff have to do better to get to that next step?
I think just keeping their confidence level high. Goff is a guy who needs to feel that love from the coaching staff and from his teammates. He didn't always have that in Los Angeles. That's why he's in Detroit. He's got it right now, but I think I am a little curious if this team, for some reason, and I don't expect it, but if they get off to a poor start and Goff is part of that poor start, I do wonder how he'll react to that. But beyond that, he's just keep doing what you're doing, build on it. The creativity of the offense and knowing when to throw those weird punches from out of left field. Goff has a really good sense of that, and Ben Johnson does too. And as long as the two of them keep their mind meld together, they created this offense together. This isn't just Ben Johnson's offense. Jared Goff had a lot of input in it as well. Understanding that this is what I do well. This is not maybe what I want to do so well. And as long as that stays fresh, they're going to be really good.
And I guess you could take a look at the last game because you can be, if you lose it, well, you weren't perfect, of course, and you made mistakes, and not everything was your fault. But was there something that was a carryover from that game from either of them? Because I remember, I forget exactly what it was, where there was some fans that were critical of, I think it was late in the game, was it, on Ben Johnson, some of the play calling?
Yeah. Yeah. So, not getting the ball to your primary weapons. Ben Johnson does get cute at times. He designs. Yeah. That's a very fair criticism of Ben Johnson, and he's heard that. He disagrees with it, but he's heard it. They in critical junctures in that game, they threw the ball to Josh Reynolds, who was their number 3 receiver, and Craig Reynolds out of the backfield, who's the number 3 running back. They have run designed plays in critical moments for Brock Wright, the backup tight end, instead of Sam Laporta or Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay.
There's a little of that. 3rd and 1, they get a little predictable. 2nd and long, they're going to run the ball. There's a lot of things that I think Johnson could be, as creative as he is. There's also sort of a predictability to when he goes unconventional. Now, they've worked hard at avoiding that, but yeah, there's times where, just line up and run the ball. There was a play, I remember the play now that got me, and it was Penei Sewell playing right tackle and Taylor Decker playing left tackle, and their assignment on a specific play was to block the guy lined up opposite the other one on a run play.
Okay.
Like there's a little too much of that.
Okay.
Just go beat the hell out of the guy in front of you. They don't do that enough, and that's a very fair criticism of Ben Johnson, and he has heard that.
And how about Goff? Was there anything? Are the fans at all wondering whether or not, is there some sort of part of his game that the fans are concerned about?
It has more to do with who he's throwing to, honestly. Will he ever develop that chemistry with Jameson Williams down the field?
Okay.
But generally speaking, most fans, and by the way, most media members, put that more on Jameson Williams than they do on Jared Goff. But in terms of like decision making and running the offense, there's always going to be a skeptical group of fans in every fan base.
Yeah,
they have a lot less meat to chew on right now with Jared Goff than I think they want.
That's absolutely.
And that by the way is a very good thing because I assume we have to talk about the backup quarterbacks. There is absolutely zero threat from Nate Sudfeld or Hendon Hooker to approach Jared Goff anytime soon. And the Goff's contract sort of put all that to rest, which is a very nice thing. Yeah.
So Hooker, this is supposed to be the year that he takes over that number 2 job. Yep. So how has he looked?
He hasn't quite buried Sudfeld yet. And I will give Nate Sudfeld some credit. A year ago at this time, well, he got hurt a year ago at this time, but he was so bad last summer that they basically begged Teddy Bridgewater to come to Detroit, and he did. And they got a lot of benefit out of Teddy but Sudfeld was awful last year. There's no way sugarcoating that. He's been better this summer, but not better enough that Hendon Hooker shouldn't beat him out. And Hendon hasn't quite done it yet. There's inconsistency in his play. One of the things that Dan Campbell and really all of the Lions coaches talk about is they want to see progress up.
Yeah.
Steadiness, consistency of performance. And Hooker just isn't quite there yet. He played great in the second preseason game against the Kansas City Chiefs, led them to a victory, which was awesome for him.
Okay.
But then he comes back, and 2 of the first 3 throws that he throws in Tuesday's practice, which was the first practice since then, one was in the dirt about 3 yards in front of the receiver, and the second one got picked off and taken back the other way. And that's just sort of he hasn't ironed out those negative points yet. And until he does, Sudfeld's going to be around. We are still wondering if it will be Nate Sudfeld or Hendon Hooker that goes into a game if Jared Goff gets hurt.
Okay.
We've gotten mixed answers on that all summer. And I would like to think that it's Hendon Hooker. I was a big fan of him coming into the draft.
Sure.
I know what Nate Sudfeld is. I know what he's not. He's certainly not high end like Hendon Hooker can be, but until Hooker proves that he is that guy, it's tough to say.
Especially
and I will say this. Dan Campbell clearly trusts Nate Sudfeld.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that, but I'm not the coach.
Well, that's typical.
They're
going to feel more comfortable with the guy who's been more experienced. It's not going to make the bad play or the dumb play.
Right.
Just make the easy play.
Yeah.
I know we all know Hooker. I mean, I'm sure he understands Hooker is a more talented player and could do more of the wow plays. But, hey, we're a good football team. If we need a win, 1 game, 1 quarter, I just can't trust you right now. I just can't. That's probably the thinking there, which is not unusual. So
no, it's not unusual at all. But Hooker, they have 1 preseason game left. It would be great if Hooker came out and nailed it. I think that would assuage a lot of fears.
Okay, so in the backfield, Gibbs seems to be okay, right?
Yes, he will be fine. Dealing with a hamstring. That's a speed guy injury. He's a speed guy.
And the good thing, of course, is that if either Montgomery or Gibbs were to miss any time, the other can be a workhorse for a short
100%.
period of time. So they're in great shape in that backfield. And Craig Reynolds is a guy that is one of those guys on the team that it's always hard to get rid of. You're trying to get rid of him. You're trying to get somebody to pass him that's more talented. Right. And the Lions use a 4th-round draft pick on a do-everything kid from Utah. How is that going?
So Reynolds has had a phenomenal camp. He looks better than he ever has in the past. He's catching the ball very well out of the backfield. He is, of the entire group, he is far and away the best in pass protection. So he's not going anywhere. But Sione Vaki is carving himself out a role. He's catching the ball very well out of the backfield. You can tell that he's not played as a full-time running back before. He played safety primarily at Utah. The Lions were the only team that drafted him with the sole intention of playing him only at running back. And there's times, frankly, where he just doesn't see the hole. He's going to run into Frank Ragnow's butt a few times. That's just because he's inexperienced. It doesn't mean that he's bad. It means that he hasn't done it before. So he is running back 4, but he will never leave the field on special teams. He is already really, really good on special teams. And that's the niche where he can come in, and if he's your 4th running back and he can come in and play a handful of snaps on offense a game if you need him to, that's great.
And if everybody's healthy, that's going to be the room, right? That's it.
Yes.
It's going to be those 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, of course, Laporta had a big year at tight end. You've mentioned Brock Wright. He seems to be a really good backup tight end. And is there – I know some of the guys on the depth chart are pretty familiar names. But has anybody done anything different? Or are we just looking at the same pretty much unit as last year?
We're wondering who's going to be tight end 3 and if they keep one tight end 4. There are 4 guys in camp. All of them could be number 3. All of them could be number 6. It sort of depends. And they're all different guys. Parker Hesse is more of an H-back, fullback, like motion kind of guy. James Mitchell, more of a big target, inline blocking guy. Shane Zylstra is a guy that I don't think should ever be near a tackle. He should be in the slot or lined up out wide. He's much more of a supersized wide receiver. And Sean McCune is sort of a jack of all, master of no trades at tight end. So we don't have a good feel for who's going to stay. I've been looking through the 53-man roster projections, my own and others who I respect, and we're all different. Like, nobody really knows what's going on there. So we know the first 2, 3 and 4 are still to be determined, but they're not going to play out. Brock Wright is a guy. We're going to get to the wide receivers here in a second, so I'll preempt it. But Brock Wright as tight end 2 will get a lot more targets on this team than wide receiver 4 does. I feel very confident about that.
Okay. Does that speak more about scheme or about depth in the Lions receiving room?
It's definitely the depth in the Lions wide receiving room. They have 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would not put it out of the realm of possibility that he leads the NFL in targets and receptions this year, and he could very well set the NFL record for both this year. And that's look, he's phenomenal. He got paid this offseason. He earned every penny of it. He's an all-pro and a worthy one. But there aren't a lot of targets beyond him. Like, Jamison Williams has improved. He's going to get a lot more work this year. He looks a lot more comfortable. I expect a big year out of JMO as wide receiver 2.
Okay.
Khalif Raymond as wide receiver 3. The team loves him. They love him. Like, no question about it. In fact, I had an interaction with a Lions staffer when I had written something that sort of questioned whether they had wide receiver 3. And I thought he was going to strangle me. Like, it's Leaf, dude. Come on. Like, so and Leaf is undersized. And this is the problem where the perception is. He's 5'8" and he's not a slot receiver. He's an outside guy.
Yeah.
That's a tough sell. And it's limited, but Goff trusts the living daylights out of Leaf Raymond. So, but number 4, yeah, good question. Because we don't know who that's going to be yet. Isaiah Williams as an undrafted rookie out of Illinois is probably the best option.
That's nice to hear.
He's a 5'9" slot guy who doesn't really block much, kind of limited in what he can do. And, their slot guy is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's the best in the business. So if you want to go to 4 wides, where does he fit? Donovan Peoples-Jones was given the keys to the kingdom and lost them.
Wow.
Doris Fountain, the first week of training camp, I would have told you was wide receiver 4, and we would be great with that. We talked about wanting to go up. He's going the other way. Wow. And it's rough. Caden Davis has had his moments. He had a great touchdown catch and run against the Chiefs. He's a guy that at the first sign of contact wilts. He just doesn't have a lot of playing power. So that's a tough one. Very easily rerouted off of where he needs to go. But at his size, that's not a good thing. we were hopeful that Traquan Smith could come in and do some things. He's out for the season. They put him on IR. He hadn't necessarily lived up to expectations anyways, so it's tough. The top three are great. I shouldn't say great. Amon-Ra's great. J-Mo can be great, and Leaf can be everything that they need him to be. If any of those guys get hurt, though, this is a big problem area. The depth at wide receiver, no doubt about it.
Is this also? I mean, could this also be a potential issue though for someone like? I mean, Randall L's been there the whole time, right?
Yes,
along
he has.
With Campbell. So, I mean, has he done anything to develop anybody?
He has with with really all three of the top guys.
Okay.
Cully Frame is a better receiver now than when he got here.
Okay.
He came from Tennessee. Was sort of they had him pegged more as a return guy, and he's developed into a decent receiver. Jameson Williams has taken a massive step forward this offseason, and Antoine Randall deserves some credit for that. And St. Brown's kind of a self-made guy, but he would tell you that he's appreciative of what Randall L has done for him. But they haven't really had like the young guys come in. Like they've had, Tom Kennedy is perennial summer superstar. That's who he is, former lacrosse player. They haven't really drafted anybody for him to work with in that regard, other than Jameson Williams. So it's, Peoples-Jones came in via a trade. I had covered him in Cleveland, and he was kind of the same guy there. Like there's more promise with him than actual results, and that's kind of the way he's been here too. So, it's there were a lot of fans, and I will raise my hand in it as well. This was a great wide receiving class in the draft, and they didn't tap into it, and that was a little frustrating. And I think that if the receiving becomes a problem, that's going to reflect poorly on the organization. But until that happens, everything's still hunky-dory. But it's certainly an area of emphasis for the next offseason. We can say that already. If you're doing a mock draft for 2025 and the Detroit Lions, and if it's not a wide receiver or an interior offensive lineman, you're probably wrong. I'm just saying that right now.
Well, I mean, then it's possible that at some point you might see some movement there, right? I mean, because there are teams out there with. I know. I just take a look at Houston's depth chart at wide receiver. It's like, come on, like 8 guys. They can't.
Robert Woods or John Mechie is not going to make that team. They would be wide receiver 4 here in a heartbeat.
Yes.
And I have floated the idea, and I'm not the only one that's done it, of a guy like James Houston or Kendall Vildor, somebody who's on the fringe on the defensive side of the ball, flip them for one of those guys. And that's not a super popular take with fans, but I kind of like the idea.
Fans just want to give up like a 2025 7th round draft pick. It's like
exactly.
It doesn't work out that way.
But we've seen in the last couple of days, player for player swaps for Carolina and Seattle did one where they traded Michael Barrett, the linebacker, the rookie from Michigan, for Michael Jackson. Like I really hope that that's something that catches on around the league where you trade players. Jahan Dotson going from Washington to Philly. Now that was for draft picks, but I hope that there's more of that coming in the next few days as we approach the cut down deadline here, because it makes too much sense. I wish
the aspirations of Detroit this year, they cannot. It doesn't even. It's not a reflection of the starters either, because if one of them gets hurt.
Yeah, and just look at, we talked about the tight ends. James Mitchell might not make this team. You send him to Houston, he's tight end 3. He might be tight end 2. Make things work like that, Yeah. I wish the NFL was more open to it. It seems like they're getting that way, but they're not. That's something that as a basketball fan, basketball teams do that all the time. Like my 12th man for your 12th man, because you need a backup point guard, we need a backup big. Like that happens all the time. It doesn't happen in the NFL. I wish it would.
Okay, so the offensive line, one of the better lines, of course, in the league for some time now. So. There have been, a couple of injury concerns, but overall, how is the camp this season? Is everybody healthy? Just going over the starters first.
Yeah, Kevin Zeitler has not practiced in a little bit. He should be fine. I saw him Wednesday of this week. He looks good to go.
Okay.
They're not playing in the preseason. None of them would be playing in the preseason regardless. But they should be good to go. And that starting five is, for my money, the best in football in terms of overall. I think Philadelphia might be a little bit better in pass protection, but this is certainly the best run blocking team in the league. And I will take, with how good they are in pass protection as well, they're going to be really good. Penei Sewell had a foot injury scare this week. He'll be fine. Sounds like a low ankle sprain, and he'll be good to go week 1 against the Rams. Thank God.
And then now you mentioned there's an issue inside on the depth, and Mahogany was a player that we talked about after the draft as someone that you really liked. We saw some a little bit of inconsistency production wise, but again, you had an injury situation in college, so that was the thing that we had talked about. What's the situation with him right now?
So he is still on the non-football illness list. He has not been in camp yet. He was placed on that at the start of camp. They are working him back, and Dan Campbell sounded optimistic that he would be ready to go and get activated before the first 4 games. Because if you're on the NFI when the season starts, you got to miss the first 4 games.
Okay.
We'll see about that. I think the fact that he was legitimately sick, and he lost some weight and some conditioning. So
what was it?
I can't say, but he was definitely ill, and you can tell. I saw him in person at the end of last week, and he did not look the same. He was a guy that looked like he lost 25, 30 pounds. So,
wow. Okay.
So he's got some work to do to get back. But yes, I'm very excited about him, but that's more of a long-term thing. Short term, you're looking at Coyote Ashika. Kingsley Agukun has stepped up. He has been taking first team reps at right guard with Kevin Zeitler being sidelined, and he hasn't always handled it perfectly, but for an undrafted guy out of Florida, he looks like he's safely on the roster as a backup center / guard. And then Michael Neese was getting those reps, and he's kind of another guy that kind of going the wrong direction as camp ends a little bit. I will say this. Last year, Graham Glasgow was their backup center, and they would move him from guard to center and bring in another guard. Everything I've seen this summer indicates that they want to keep Glasgow at guard and would have Aguakun or Michael Neese, if he happens to make it, as the backup center. So that's a little bit of a change from what the deviation, but that's I feel pretty good about Aguakun's chances. Although again, if you look around the contemporaries, people that I trust and respect in the media, there are some that don't have him on it. So still to be determined there.
All right. I guess we'll find out who knows their Detroit Lions.
That's right. We'll see.
So what about Storsdale? He was a pick last year. Is he? And it looks like is he the backup at right tackle?
He is. For better or for worse, that's another guy. Started camp up here, and
oh geez,
it's been bad. He had a 5-play stretch in Kansas City where he was guilty of a penalty, did not touch his assignment on a pass rush, did not touch his assignment on a run block that got Zonovan Knight just buried in the backfield almost as soon as he got the ball. And then he was guilty of a holding penalty. They didn't call it, but he was clearly guilty of it. And the Chiefs player that he was holding let him know it. It's been rough, and it's frustrating because I like Colby Sorsdal a lot. I'm glad they're moving him back to tackle. They tried to move him inside last year. It didn't really work. They're moving him back to where he played at William and Mary. It's the biggest injury fear I have, and like every team has existential injury dread. Like that's part of what we are. Take away the quarterback. The most indispensable player on this offense is Penei Sewell or Taylor Decker. And some of that is because those guys are awesome, but some of it is also because the drop-off to Colby Sorsdal and or Dan Skipper is monumental And they're both well ahead of Giovanni Manu, the 4th-round rookie, who was – and Dan Campbell has basically come out and said, we drafted him as a redshirt. Like, we know he's not going to play. We know he's not going to be ready. Having said that, he played pretty well in Kansas City. It was nice to see. But this is a guy like his college offense at the University of British Columbia, they had 4 plays. He didn't play football until his sophomore year there. Had never played American football before that. So you're looking at a guy who is a complete athletic project. Now he's coming along pretty nicely, but it's backup tackle it's bad everywhere. Like, no doubt about that. I'm sure every single guest that you've had has complained about their offensive tackle depth. Detroit is no exception. Put it that way.
Okay. Let's slide on over to the defense. And this is really the part of the team that has got to take that next step. Because the offense is going to, health-wise, if they're healthy, the offense is going to do fine. It's up to the defense to make the big plays and to shut the best teams down come postseason time if everything goes well. First, let's talk about some of the guys here in red because they're all dealing with injuries. Reader should be back soon, right?
Yes. He could be back week 1, although it's probably – I expect him to be activated, and he might not play week 1, but I think week 2, week 3, he will be in there. We saw him. He got to talk to us a little bit. He didn't talk to us. He talked to the coaches who related to us, but he was physically at camp. He looks fine. He had a little bit of a setback from his torn quad. He'll be good. Again, might not be week 1, and he might be eased in where he's playing 25% of the snaps the first week and then up, gradually up from that. But having covered him in the past, I covered him when he was in Houston. I'm so blessed to have this guy. We are very, very lucky as Detroit Lions to have him in here. And just what he's done for the guys around him. And we might have talked about this before, but Broderick Martin, who is his backup essentially, and will make this team. And he talked about how he had never met DJ Reader before. And the first time he meets DJ Reader, Reader had gone through all of his college tape, even going back to when he was at the University of North Alabama before he was even at Western Kentucky, and picked it over and gave him things that he could point, like what he observed from him. Like, wow, that's what you're getting a DJ Reader. That's special. That's rare. And that's great. That's why I say we're blessed to have him in Detroit. Even if he's not a top 5 nose tackle anymore. Sure. And he was on the fringe of that last year in Cincinnati and has been for some time. If he's top 15 even, we're good. We're good.
Kaminsky. So he suffered a late July knee injury.
Yeah.
How's he coming along?
He will be on IR, and it could be very well that he's out for the entire season, but they want to give the potential for him to get back for a playoff push and or the playoffs at the end of the year. Torn MCL with him. He's already had the surgery, but he will be put on IR at the start of the year.
Okay. And then Mosley. Now, speaking of ACLs, so Mosley trying to make his way back. So how does he? I mean, what's the word?
He's done. He's I forget what the exact injury. It wasn't his ACL again. So he tore his ACL in 2022 in San Francisco. Came in, played 2 plays in 2023, and tore the other ACL. And this time, I think it was a pec. I think it was a torn pec.
What was that?
Not terribly long ago. It was the week. I want to say it was the week leading into the Giants game, which was the first preseason game. But he will be on IR. There's some limited chance that he could get back, but this is a guy you're talking about. A guy going back to college. He's had massive injury issues. I say this as somebody who likes and respects him a lot. I really hope he decides that it's time to be done and move on to the next part of his career because he's going to be a hell of a coach. He's going to be a hell of a position coach someday. Okay. Hopefully he gets into that sooner than later because he's an asset. This is a guy, again, came in, didn't have an offseason last year, was out, didn't get activated until end of the year, because he had complications from his ACL in San Francisco, was with the team the entire time, plays the 2 plays, doesn't go home after he gets hurt again, stays with the team and is with them on the sideline talking to guys in huddles while he's on injured reserve after that. Like, these are people that he doesn't really know. That says a lot about his character too. So I would love to have him around this team this year, and if he's on IR for the entire season, he'll still find a way to contribute, as weird as that sounds.
All right, well then let's talk about the spots there that need to be filled. So what about, because who would be considered the backup nickel right now?
So nickel right now is Amik Robertson has, and I say this having ripped him mercilessly for how bad he played in the slot in Las Vegas, has looked good in the slot, and I'm very happy about that. Right now it's Ennis Rakestraw getting the second team reps there.
Oh, okay.
And he'll also get second team reps outside. He's sort of floating between the two. We have seen Kindle Vildor in there at times, but Kindle's better outside. So that's sort of where, and you will still see Brian Branch slide up there occasionally.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially when the opposing team, let's say they're in, 12 personnel. He's at safety and they flex a guy. Like, he's gonna be the guy that rotates up there. So
okay,
you'll still see some of that too.
Now, how does the secondary look in general? Because as we talked a few months ago, big transformation,
it's
lots of new
changed
bodies, and you would hope, and it looks for the good. So how is it going? How are all the new faces adapting?
Carlton Davis will be one outside corner. Terry and Arnold will be the other outside corner. They're both new. Arnold is dealing with a chest injury right now. He'll be fine week 1. I have no doubt about that. He had the misfortune of trying to tackle Amon-Ra St. Brown in a practice a couple weeks ago and got the worst of it. Happened right in front of me. It looked a lot worse in real time. I was worried that he'd torn a pec or broken a rib or something. It's not that serious. He could play this weekend if he needed to. Carlton Davis has been everything they wanted in an aggressive, in-your-face press man outside corner. Arnold is the same way. Rakestraw is the same way. He's a lot quieter than those two, but he is a very physical at the line, not going to let you get a clean release type of player, and that's exactly what Aaron Glenn wants. If you remember, Aaron Glenn is a player. He played that way. He's never had cornerbacks who can do anything close to what he did as a player. He's got them now.
Yeah, it's
going to be fun to watch how that develops. And I will say there's a lot of pressure on Aaron Glenn to deliver, because he's always had the crutch of, like, they're starting week 1 cornerback last year. One of them was Jerry Jacobs, who couldn't get signed this offseason. He finally latched on with the Rams, lasted like 2 weeks in practice. Now he's out on an injury settlement. But he wouldn't be number 7 on this depth chart this year. Like, that's how good it is. And I will give Kindle Vildor and Khalil Dorsey both a ton of credit. They've both played exceptional this summer. They are worthy of making this team, and it could be the only one of them makes it. And that's a sign of real progress for this team.
Okay. And out of all of those depth guys, who do you think, or what's take? Because Robertson's new, Davis is new. We know about Branch, and Arnold's and Rakestraw are both the top rookie guys. So everybody else, who do you think could take? Who do you feel confident will take like another step?
That's tough. So at safety, Brandon Joseph has taken a big step up. He has kind of taken over the third role from Ifeatu Melifonwu, who lost his starting job because Brian Branch moved back to safety in that spot. Melifonwu's been injured some this summer, which has kind of been a recurring theme for his career. He's much more of a in-the-box or edge type safety. He did phenomenal at that down the stretch, but that's not as big of a role as it has been in the past. Brandon Joseph more of a coverage guy, so they're going to sort of mix and match on that, or at least that seems to be the plan. Cornerback, Stephen Gilmore made this team as an undrafted rookie last year. I don't really see any way he makes it this year. He's a guy that I hope he latches on somewhere else, because he has had his moments this summer, but he's clearly number 7 right now, and they're not keeping more than 6. They might not even keep more than 5.
Okay. All right, let's move up to the front seven. Do you expect Jack Campbell to take a big step?
I hope so. The team does. I'm hopeful that he does too. I'm not as sold on Jack Campbell being great as what the team is and what some of my colleagues are. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be fine. But I'm not sure that he is the next coming of Randy Gradishar as he's being made out to be. Bonus points for anybody who knows who Randy Gradishar is.
Oh yeah,
even though he just made the Hall of Fame, was as a kid growing up in Ohio in the 70s. Randy Gradishar was the freaking man.
Oh yeah,
one of my very first football heroes. So I had to throw him in there. But,
absolutely,
Campbell has his moments. He also has some where he's still flat-footed a little bit. He still sometimes over pursues. Will choose the wrong hole from time to time in run defense. Coverage, he can be like a tick late to pick up on things. He's getting better, and the team certainly trusts him. I'm very I'll put it this way. I'm very happy that Alex Anzalone is still there because he's really smart and really good at what he does, and I think that takes some of the pressure off of Jack Campbell. And Derek Barnes playing the Sam role has ceded that other off-ball linebacker role to Campbell, but he's still there. He's still helpful, and he's playing the role that he played at Purdue.
Okay,
and it's baffled me for years why the Lions haven't used him in that role. Well, they finally got him back to doing it, and he looks great. And one of the functions of that is they are playing more with three linebackers on the field than they ever have under Dan Campbell.
Okay.
I don't know if I had to put a number on it in practices. I'd say it's probably over 35 to 40%, somewhere in that range. And just the 2022 season, they had 11 snaps the entire season with three linebackers on the field.
Yeah.
So they have been straight base nickel the entire time, and that is changing a little bit. And some of that is because Barnes is really effective at rushing the passer, and they're looking for that. But also Campbell and Anzalone in coverage have done enough, and Brian Branch moving back to safety solidifies the back end coverage enough that they feel like they can do that and get bigger and be more of an attacking defense, which they can't do as much when you're a nickel.
Okay, so it is more of now we have the personnel. This is what we wanted to do, or is it? Well, we have the personnel. We might as well do it. What do you think it is?
So that's a very good question. I like the way you phrase that. I think it's more of the latter. I think it's like we have this personnel. Let's use it the way we want to.
Okay.
But Derek Barnes, he improved a lot as an off-ball linebacker, but there were still times where you're like, Jack Campbell should probably have that role, and that's what they did. So it's good.
All right. So maybe what you're saying is you haven't seen it yet. Maybe you will see it with Campbell. You just don't think that you've seen it.
And it's not consistent. There are times where he's been great. He played really, really well in the joint practices against the Giants. He's looked very good at times in camp. He had a dominant day. When was it? Not this week. It was the last practice before Kansas City game. He was all over the field and making plays everywhere. So it's there. It's just one of the things. He's in his second year. He is in a different system than he played in college, and he's adapting to it. He will certainly be good. I have no doubt that he will be good. But if there's some people that are writing some pretty lucrative checks about his impending greatness, and I'm not there yet with that.
Okay.
But he'll be good. No doubt about that.
And up front, Aiden. Now, do you think that he is going to take a really big step this year? Do you think that he has that type of top 3-4 edge rushers NFL greatness in him?
100%. And I said this on a radio program I was on earlier today. If you are looking for a value investment, betting on Aiden Hutchinson to be the NFL Defensive Player of the Year is a worthy one that's a lottery ticket I would absolutely buy. In fact, I might have bought one of those. So I covered Myles Garrett. I covered J.J. Watt towards the end of his Houston prime. Aiden Hutchinson is every bit as good as either of those two that I ever saw from them this summer. He has taken that proverbial next step. He is nasty. He has been consistently beating Penei Sewell. And Penei is the best right tackle in football. And that's not about Penei. That's about Aiden Hutchinson. That's the best way I can say it.
Well, he's 11-1 to win the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. So he is behind Watt, Parsons, Garrett, Crosby, and Nick Bosa. He
certainly belongs in that conversation with all those guys.
And by the way, there are 6 guys that are considered the top 6, and he's in them. And then there's a drop off from 11-1 to 30-1 when you go to the next group. So he's hanging with that first group. A little on the outside, but he's there. He's like the best bargain out of that 6, being 11-1.
Yeah.
So
that's why you buy it. Yeah,
I like it.
I still favor Myles Garrett. I freaking love Myles Garrett. I'm not going to hide it, but
we were talking about, because they were we were given on that, we were doing that show, and we were doing predictions on everything, and as far as the MVP, as far as all those awards, and they were, a couple of guys said, Myles Garrett, we're going to say he's going to win again, defensive MVP, and then we were looking at the odds for NFL MVP, and I could not believe that Myles Garrett is 200-1 to win the NFL MVP. But it's not because of who he is. It's just, those are the odds. Yes, because it's like they're basically, Vegas is just spitting in the face of the NFL and who gives these awards out and saying, you're not going to give him the award no matter how good he is, so we'll put him at 200-1. That's how
pretty much an offensive award. I'll say this: Aiden Hutchinson probably deserves more love than he's getting in those odds as well for NFL MVP. That's a quarterback award. We know that.
I know. It's unfortunate.
I will say, if the Lions have the same offense that they did last year, and they're top 5 for the 3rd year in a row in yardage and scoring, and Amon-Ra St. Brown sets the league record for receiving, receptions, and yardage. He probably won't get yardage, but I really do think he's going to set the NFL record for receptions in a season this year. He probably deserves more love than he's getting in those odds too for NFL MVP.
Let's see. Where do I see St. Brown here?
You probably have to scroll down a little bit.
Let me see who's the first non-quarterback. That would be, that's definitely McCaffrey. And McCaffrey's 40-1. And he's the first non-quarterback.
He's really good.
Yeah. And then you got Tyreek as the first receiver. But I'm having to go way down here. Past Myles Garrett, it looks like, at 200. And Amon is at 250. Yeah. That's a good one. I like that one. Because at least he's on offense.
That's right.
If he has like a Jerry Rice type of year, then why not?
I mean, it's very realistic for him to get 12 targets per game consistently. And there will be some weeks where he might get a few more than that. I don't see any game where he plays the entire game where he doesn't get 10 targets. And he's going to catch 70% of those. 17 games, that's a lot of catches. That's a lot of opportunity to show off. And he is incredible after the catch. And Ben Johnson is a wizard at designing plays for him to get yards after the catch. I like that.
I think I have the 3rd or 4th pick in my year-to-year league this year. So I know I wouldn't be able to get him with my 2nd pick. So I'd have to really be ballsy enough to think about taking him. But you know what? In our league, because we have our rules are really about we have rules that really favor, like, if you're a big player, no matter where, your wide receivers are starting to get drafted early. So any other fantasy fans that are watching this, because I would definitely consider rolling the dice and being aggressive and taking your advice and saying, hey, why not? I'll take St. Brown, whatever I have, 3 or 4. Why not? So
the caveat with fantasy is he might not get a lot of touchdowns.
Interesting.
And his yards per catch, or he's not going to touch he's not going to touch where Tyreek is. But he's not going to be Justin Jefferson, Jamar. That's not who he is. But he's going to get you a solid 12 and a half Might lead the league in total yak. I don't know if it'll be per catch, but like total yards after the catch. Yeah, that's an easy one for me.
Yeah, I know the league I'm in doesn't have that, but there are leagues that do have the whole targets and reception, D of points, so that would definitely favor him more than other leagues. Okay, definitely. So Davenport. Now this could be another big.
Man.
this is a player that really does need to produce.
So far, so good.
Okay.
So far, so good. He's been healthy. He looks good. He's a great scheme fit with his length and his ability to go speed to power or power to speed. He can do both. We've seen it. He has been very good in camp. Just for the love of God, stay healthy. Play more than 12 games. Play more than 2 games. That would be great, because the one of the biggest questions on this defense, and we all have it, from fans to media to the coaching staff itself, who's opposite Hutch? Who's going to be that second pass rusher guy? That's one of the reasons why they're playing Barnes more at Sam, because he's very good at that. And that brings a different angle dynamic. You can line him and Hutchinson up next to each other. Good luck blocking that, but teams will try. So if they do that, who's the guy from the backside? I really hope it's Marcus Davenport, and I say that knowing that Minnesota fans and New Orleans fans are laughing their butts off at me for hoping that.
Well,
but so far, so good.
He's got, like you said, he's got to stay healthy. And if he stays healthy, then he's still at the prime of his career. So
he looks good. He's a good fit.
Who is the next guy? Because this is another area I would think of concern depth-wise, that if anything were to happen to Aiden, I'm not saying for the season. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's tough. Josh Paschal has stepped up some, but this is a guy who's missed a lot of time going back into college pretty much every year of his career. He has, and we actually got to talk to him the last practice. He has embraced being a power guy. He's back up over 270. Last year he played in the 260 range and sort of never really had a fit. As a stand-up rusher, he's embraced being a power guy, and he's wearing it well. So I think he's going to play more and more consistently. But at edge, then you're looking at James Houston, who's injured right now and missed most of last season with an injury and hasn't done a lot this summer. You go back to his rookie season, he ended the year with 8 sacks in 7 games. It was phenomenal. There are a lot of – he's a very polarizing player. There are a lot of fans who are still like, oh, you're going to roll him back out there and he's going to get 20 sacks this year. There's the reality of the fact that he's repping with the third team defense consistently this summer and hasn't done a lot there. He flashes from time to time, but there was a play the other day in their practices. He lined up at the right defensive end spot, and immediately Nate Sudfeld audibled to a delayed handoff, and because he knew that Houston would run up the field and Craig Reynolds would have a hole, and sure enough, Reynolds took off and ran 60 yards down the field, not getting touched. That's the issue with James Houston right now, and also the fact that he's not healthy. I will say that Mitchell Agude is pushing him. I don't know if he's going to push hard enough to get him off the roster. Isaac Ukwu has been a very pleasant surprise. I remember watching this guy at Ole Miss, and I'm like, man, that guy's athletic as heck, but the football elevator isn't going to the top floor, so it's starting to go up. He's made some plays, and it's one of those things where you're wondering, okay, maybe Ole Miss wasn't a good fit for him. Maybe he needed to be somewhere else, because he's looked good. At minimum, both of those guys are like massive priority practice squad guys. And if anybody gets hurt, they're going to rush right into that. And, with the injury history with Houston and with Paschal and with Davenport, you got to have some guys there at the ready, because depending on all 3 of those guys to play all 17 games is nope, not going to do it.
Yeah, that's why there's got to be concerning that as much as the team wants and in a way maybe needs Davenport to step up and deliver.
Yeah, they do. 100%.
It's asking almost like this is like a player that really hasn't delivered. So it's like, wow, what happens if he doesn't deliver?
Yeah.
Then there's a big problem.
I don't want to think about that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's and that's where, if Houston can recapture some of his former glory, if Agude can do what he's done this summer, if Uku can do what he's done this summer, I'm not frightened by it. It would be a bummer, but it wouldn't be one of those catastrophic things. Now, if Hutchinson goes down for any length of time, that's a problem. But again, existential dread about losing your stars to injury is something that plagues every team.
Oh yeah, especially the ones that aren't used to the fan bases that aren't used to the success. That's like
tough.
The one thing that always creeps back in your mind is something's going to happen.
I remember covering the Texans team when J.J. Watt first got hurt, and the proverbial wind out of the sails just went the opposite direction. That was tough, but they got through it. They did. They were competitive again.
They did.
It did. Yeah.
All right. So give me you already mentioned a few of these guys. Have you mentioned the college free agent guys? You've mentioned all of them that need to be talked about then?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Mekhi Wingo deserves some love. He and Aleem McNeil. If you're looking for a breakout candidate, Aleem McNeil. Aleem McNeil is a monster this summer. He has been unblockable, and he's going against Frank Ragnow, who is arguably the best center in the league, and until yesterday was the highest paid center in the league and worthy of that. Creed Humphrey, great player too. Like, okay, that's good. Good for him. He earned it. Aleem's been ridiculous. And he has a maturity to him. This is his fourth year. And you saw him kind of break out last year. There's a different sort of determination and attitude with him this year, where he's not as wide-eyed as he has been. And he's wearing that very well. New defensive line coach Terrell Williams you cannot say enough about how significant of an addition he has been for Williams, for Broderick Martin coming along, for McNeil, bringing Kyle Pecco with him. Kyle Pecco is going to start at nose tackle until DJ Reader is ready to go. And Pecco has played very well. He has been better than any other version of Kyle Pecco I've ever seen. And that's nice to see because, again, everybody who played nose tackle last year is gone. Isaiah Buggs, Benito Jones, Tyson Alualu took a flyer on that. Like, that's the past. We're much better now.
And that's important too, because if there is an issue on the edge depth-wise, having that much talent inside, that makes up for it. So,
absolutely. Just one quick thing on the undrafted guys. Lawrence Strickland, safety out of Ball State. He is a big-time hitter. He will land on the practice squad. They like him a lot. They got to teach him some discipline and coverage, but you do not want to be in the way of Lawrence Strickland when he's coming at you.
Okay. That sounds like someone to keep an eye on then. All right. So, and by the way, how's special teams looking?
So we have a long snapper battle. Hogan Hatton is a ridiculously athletic long snapper. He actually played some linebacker in their preseason game against the Giants and looked okay. The first punt of preseason, Hogan Hatton snapped the ball. He beat Jack Fox's punt to the return man down the field.
Wow. Okay.
But he might not win the job. Like, Scott Daly's been fine too. So
how long is Daly? How old is Daly?
Daly's been around a while. He got hurt last year and they brought in Jake McQuaid out of mothballs, and Jake was fine. He's retired now. It's this is Daly's third or fourth year in Detroit. Don Muehlbach is still on the coaching staff, the greatest long snapper in Lions history. He's been around. Daly's fine. He's a perfectly acceptable long snapper. It's just the upside of Hatton is admittedly exciting. And then the kicker.
Well, you talked about, by the way, about Hatton when we went over the rookies to keep an eye on. You said keep an eye on this guy. He might make the team.
And I do think that Daly will get it, but I don't know that.
Okay.
And I will say this. The Lions will be the exceedingly rare team to keep a long snapper on the practice squad if Hogan Hatton doesn't make it. You better believe he'll be sticking around in Detroit. They love him. But, it's
that's
unseen
still
and incumbent.
important, though. So,
yeah.
So maybe it wouldn't be
specials for people, too.
But I get where you're coming from.
Kicker Jake Bates.
Yes.
Woo! UFL superstar. He's been all over the place. There are times when you're like, oh my God, yes. There are times when you're like, can you make one extra point today, please? Because he misses, I'm just going to do quick math in my head. He's missed about 20% of his extra points this summer between preseason games and scrimmages. He's got an incredible leg. He's learning the kickoff rule pretty well. He will be the kicker, for better or for worse.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that they won't?
I don't think they're going after another guy. I really don't. Talking to special teams coordinator Dave Phipp, they are very intrigued by him. They did not bring another kicker into camp specifically to get him reps, so he would be more ready for. This is a guy didn't kick field goals or extra points in high school or college. Like, he's okay. He started out at, I think it was Central Arkansas. He went to Texas State. Was that Arkansas briefly, I think? Didn't kick at any of those, but he was their kickoff specialist. So he basically parlayed a good UFL season into being the Detroit Lions kicker. Now, they have been very quick to jettison guys in the past. And I'll just say this. Had Michael Badgley not gotten hurt and he tore his hamstring, and it was an avulsion fracture, actually tore some bone off the hamstring as well when that happened, he would have been the kicker. But he's out for a very long time. Wish the Money Badger well because he's a good dude and was a good kicker. But that's certainly a question mark. And
yeah.
But it is what it is. Jack Fox is great. He's one of the best punters in the league. I can't say he's the best because there's some freaky good punters in this league, Craig. Like, there's incredible punting going on right now. So for those of us who care about those things, it's really been neat to see.
Well,
he belongs in that conversation.
And with Badgley, that was someone, like you said, that he really was going to help them out and give them some stability there. So what's this? So what exactly happened, and what's his status overall now?
He's done. He tore his hamstring. It's
okay.
Unfortunate.
But he's not a superstar type of talent as far as leg wise. But look, the door's open now for Bates. So.
Yeah. I'm very hopeful that he will live up to it. He's a nice kid. I'm rooting for him, but I don't trust it yet. I just got to be straight about that.
I don't blame you.
And then return jobs are up for grabs, and some of this deals with Isaiah Williams. Does he make the team or does he not make the team? I think he does. I think he will be one of the two kick returners. I think Khalif Raymond will be the primary punt returner, but you will see you could see Williams there too. You could see Sione Vaki back there as one of the kick returners. You could see Craig Reynolds has gotten some looks back there and doesn't do bad with it. But they're still sorting through that too. Punt returner is Leaf to lose, but if he's that important to the offense, that's the other one where, okay, we've got a great return guy at Isaiah Williams, who was phenomenal at that at Illinois. Let's let him do that, and let's keep Khalif Raymond off the special teams where there's risk for him to get hurt. That's a big school of thought in Lions land. We'll see how that goes because we don't. That's one thing. Dave Phipp is an incredibly candid guy, and when you ask him questions, he answers. He didn't have an answer for that, which indicated to me that they don't know the answer to it. Because if he knew the answer, he would tell us. So there we are.
Well, it sounds to me, though, that there still could be some movement in personnel with this team. I know there's a lot of, and I think maybe even, and you never know, but sometimes the talk that comes out of, like, say, a player like Bates, that, oh yeah, we're sticking with him, he's our guy. Sometimes that's,
yeah. I mean, we just saw Cade York traded yesterday.
We want the guy to hear that, so he's confident and he doesn't think that we don't believe in him. But like you said, yeah, anything can happen. So,
exactly.
Especially when you're a team like this.
It wouldn't surprise me if he missed 2 field goals in week 1 that they have somebody else in there in week 2.
Yeah. So, and still some.
And by the way, he knows that. Bates knows that and gets it. Yeah, he gets it.
He's not on. I don't know. Tennessee or the Patriots or something like that, where it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though Tennessee might be better than we think, but I don't know. That's one hard team to try to figure out.
They're a tough one.
Yeah.
If Will Levis is good, they can be good. And I think he might be able to be good.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Rookie staff. And a lot of youth there, but
tough division too. Houston's really good. The Colts are not going away, and I think Jacksonville is better than they played last year too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Lawrence got hurt, and it's like what happened with the Dolphins. Everything was going great. They were looking like a great team, and then all of a sudden, well, what happened? Well, they got injured. A bunch of their guys got hurt, and they were a walking wounded team headed into the postseason. So. Yeah.
And again, that's the hope that doesn't happen to Detroit this year, because this team can go. They can win this Super Bowl. Nobody would be surprised about that.
No,
I'm not saying that they will, but they certainly can. But they got to have their key players healthy.
What's your prediction? How are you feeling about the team, this particular team? I know you try not to get over.
Yeah, so I think I think they win the NFC North. I think they will host at least one playoff game, and there's not a team that they would see in the playoffs that they cannot beat, home or road. Doesn't mean that they will, but they can. And I don't see them being a one and done in the postseason. I think they'll win at least one. But weird things happen in the postseason. But the concept that this team could somehow fall, I don't buy into that at all. I think their floor is a injury-laden second place to the Packers in the NFC North. I think that's their floor.
Yeah,
and 9-8. It's weird because I think their win line is only 10.5. Excuse me, and it's tough to see, like, the way their schedule lays out. They got an early bye. They have, I think it's 5 road games in 7 weeks. So, like, the schedule doesn't favor getting 13, 14 wins, but they're good. They're going to be a very, very good, formidable football team, and you're going to see a lot of them on national TV this year. And for once, you will be grateful that you're going to watch a lot of Detroit Lions football.
Yeah, right. No, I just I think that, matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up with the number 1 seed. San Francisco's got that Super Bowl loser, stigma to deal with. Yeah. It's not easy. A lot of Super Bowl losers, they sometimes have hangovers.
That's a really good football team, but they have pretty serious questions. I don't like their secondary at all. I think that's a major weakness for them, and I think that the Lions are a team that can exploit that. I think Philadelphia can exploit that. I think Atlanta can exploit that. They're good. Not going to say that they're not a legitimate contender, because they're very good, but they are not. I think the gap between them and every other team isn't nearly as big as what 49ers fans want it to be.
Well, they're very well. They've got really good structure organizationally, and
100%. They're
very well coached.
Yeah, they are very well coached. They have good depth across the board, other than their secondary and kind of their offensive line, but and their system, much like Detroit, they know who is not a San Francisco 49er. One of the things that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have done a great job at in Detroit is identifying this guy might be really talented, but he's not one of us. And they avoid those guys. San Francisco also does that exceptionally well, and that's the hallmark of a good football team. That's how you stay good for a long time. That's not how some other teams that kind of rise up and then go away do it. And the Baltimore Ravens are like that too. We joke about this. I joked about with Dan Shaka back in the day down in St. Pete. We would look at a player like, that guy's a Baltimore Raven. Like, you just know by looking at him. We're getting to that with Detroit now. And San Francisco's kind of there too. Like, you just like, that's a Lion. That's a fun place to be for some of the god-awful teams that I've covered. It's very nice to have a team with a positive identity. I love it.
It starts with the coach.
It does. It absolutely does.
That's why they have that identity. And by the way, the thing too with San Francisco that is, even though it looks like at some point they're going to figure out, I'm not even talking about the Ayuk situation, but the Trent Williams one is because if anything were to happen to Trent Williams, that could be a domino effect that San Francisco would never recover from. So
he can't play forever.
No, he cannot. No. So I'm not surprised he didn't report and wants a deal because he's got him. What are they going to do? Say no? And at this stage of his career, he could just say, "Okay, then I guess I'm. That's it. I guess I'll be done, and we'll, I'll wait." Younger guys they don't hold out. They have to play. They don't have. They just can't. They can't not hold out. I mean, they can't not skip this. It's just so. I think that Ayuk situation is going to get straightened out as well. But if they lose Trent Williams, they have no shot.
No.
I think
that's where Detroit comes in, man.
Yeah. Well, either way, I think it's going to be another great season for the Lions, and it's going to be a lot of fun watching them play. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun covering them, and we're going to talk again during the season, of course. So can't wait to pick the spots when we can talk, and especially as the team gets ready to go to the postseason again. Fingers crossed, everybody's healthy, and then it'd be really cool to see what they could do in the playoffs again, and maybe take that next step. So
God, I hope so. It'll be great.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you.
Looking forward to it.
And the fans in the NFL, they want new blood anyway. It's like nobody wants to see Kansas City and San Francisco or Kansas City and Philadelphia. Enough of that. Let's get some fresh blood in the Super Bowl. So Jets and Lions. Let's go with that.
Jets would be an interesting one. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but
yeah, Jets Lions.
Let's
Why not?
Why not?
Absolutely. All right, Jeff. By the way, for anybody who doesn't know this, and I'm sure they do anyway, but you have your YouTube channel, the Detroit Lions channel.
The Detroit Lions podcast. Yep.
Detroit Lions podcast. How often do you do your shows on that podcast?
We will be doing them live once a week. You will get pre-recorded from me once a week, and there's other people that are coming on doing a lot of shows. We actually have a medical doctor on staff who's doing stuff now. His name is Dr. Jimmy Leal. I'll give him a shout out. Does great work on like breaking down the mechanism of the injuries, recovery times, and variables to go along with it. Definitely worth checking his stuff out too.
And you're on that show how many times a week?
Once live and once on Memorex, for those of you who remember the old ad from the 80s.
And do you do a post-game show yourself?
I do not. We do have a post-game show. I'm not affiliated with that one. Other guys handle that one. I'm a little busy.
Yeah, being managing editor, that'll keep you busy, no question.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it as always.
All right, thank you so much for having me.